explain what happened that night. There are no words to properly describe the sheer horror of it. But I have to tell you, because something is still out there, something I can't forget, no matter how hard I try. It all started a few months ago. I had just moved into a small apartment in a quiet part of the city. The place was old, but it was cheap, and I was desperate to get out of my parents' house. I thought it would be just like any other place, nothing special. The building was older, yes, but I didn't care. I was used to places with creaky floors and peeling wallpaper. The first couple of weeks were uneventful. I was just getting used to the rhythm of being on my own. But then things started to happen. At first, it was small stuff. The door to the bathroom would be slightly ajar when I was sure I had closed it. Or my keys would be in a different spot than I remembered leaving them. I tried to brush it off as the typical forgetfulness of a tired person. But soon, things escalated. One night, I came home late from work. It was around 11 p.m., and the building was almost completely silent. The lights in the hallway flickered as I made my way up to my apartment on the third floor. When I got to my door, I noticed something odd. The door was cracked open. I was certain I had locked it that morning. I always locked it. Always. My heart started to race as I pushed the door open cautiously. The apartment was dark, but I immediately noticed the feeling of coldness, the kind of cold that doesn't belong inside a home, as if someone had opened a window in the dead of night, even though all the windows were shut. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me and immediately heading toward the light switch. But just as I reached for it, something caught my eye. On the floor, just in front of the couch, were footprints, large, muddy prints that weren't there when I left. They were fresh. I could smell the dampness of the earth that still clung to them. I froze. I don't know what it was about those prints, but they made my stomach drop. I couldn't understand how they'd gotten there. There was no one else in the apartment, no one I knew. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I searched the entire apartment. I checked the closets, under the bed, in the bathroom. No one was there, but those footprints, they kept coming back to me, lingering in my mind. Who was in my apartment? Why? The next night, the same thing happened. I came home late, and the door was slightly open again. I was starting to feel paranoid, but I convinced myself I was just overreacting. Maybe I'd left the door unlocked or hadn't shut it properly. But when I walked in, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The footprints were still there, but this time there was something else, a piece of paper lying on the floor, folded neatly. I bent down to pick it up, my hands trembling. The note was simple, written in block letters, as if it had been written in a hurry. The words read, "I'm here." I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that note. I wanted to scream, to call the police, but something kept me from doing it. Maybe it was the fear of being laughed at. Maybe I thought it was a joke. But deep down, I knew someone had been in my apartment. Someone was watching me. I stayed up the rest of the night. I couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding too fast. I kept the lights on, checking every corner of the room, expecting someone to jump out at me from the shadows. But the apartment remained silent. The next few days were a blur of unease. I kept hearing noises in the apartment, sounds that made no sense. I'd hear footsteps behind me when I was in the kitchen, or hear the sound of something scraping against the floor when I was in the shower. I would spin around, but there was nothing. No one there. The lights flickered constantly. The coldness in the air never left. But it wasn't until the third night that everything truly fell apart. I came home from work, exhausted as usual. The door was cracked open again, but this time there was something new. There was blood. Not a lot, but just enough to make my stomach churn. A thin trail of it, leading from the door to the hallway and disappearing behind the living room couch. I hesitated for a moment, my body paralyzed by a rush of terror. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I stepped into the apartment, slowly following the blood trail. It led me to the couch where I stopped. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone, but I managed to snap a picture of the blood-stained carpet. As I pulled the couch away from the wall, I felt the floor shift beneath me. There was something wrong about this spot, something unnatural. I knelt down, my breath shallow, and reached underneath. What I pulled out, I can't describe. At first, I thought it was a doll, but the longer I stared at it, the more I realized it wasn't. It was human, but not quite human. Its eyes were too wide, too hollow, and its face was twisted in a way I can't even explain. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and it was cold to the touch, unnaturally cold. Its mouth was open, but there was no sound. And that's when I heard the whispering. It started off soft, barely audible, but quickly grew louder, coming from everywhere. It was a voice, a low, guttural voice, too distorted to make sense of. I'm here. I backed away in terror, my eyes wide with panic, but the voice didn't stop. It was all around me, coming from every corner of the room, the walls, the ceiling. The apartment itself seemed to be alive, vibrating with a sickening hum. I don't know how I made it out of there, but I did. I ran. I haven't been back to that apartment since, and I've changed every number associated with my name. But here's the thing, I still hear it. The whispering, faint, but always there. It follows me wherever I go. At night, when I'm lying in bed, I hear the voice just behind me, just over my shoulder. It says the same thing over and over again. I'm here.